boogeyman is real, and you found him.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
I'm your number one fan.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
7 days.
I am Dracula.
We have such sights to show you. Boy!
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I am the eater of worlds and of children.
What's in the fucking box?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
One by one, we will take you.
Never get out of bed again!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else gets the hose again.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Welcome, horror fans. It is Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and it means it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast. And a quick announcement for our listeners. The TP-9000 has recently disappeared, and we fear, after years of unrelenting use, it may have developed sentience. So if you're planning on watching any guilty pleasure horror this weekend, we advise you to keep your doors and windows locked. And if you, dear horror fanatic, are listening to us at the top of the week, remember we do this live right here on YouTube every preceding Wednesday. So hang out with us in the live chat. Come see all the stuff that eventually ends up on the cutting room floor. We hope to see you. So this week, we are looking back at select horror films released July 7th through July 13th. So thank you all so much for joining us for what will surely be a bloody good time. I am your host, JL. And it is already July. It is already July. This is the week of Independence Day. So it's just parties all over the place. But it's amazing to see everybody. I hope you all are having a fantastic week so far. I know we come in right there at the middle of the week to kind of give you some relief. But appreciate you hanging out with us because you have all the places you could be. You're here to talk about scary movies with us. So first and foremost, let's get up that Patreon banner. There's all those amazing people down there to help make this show possible. We do appreciate it. Thank you all very, very much. And let's see, before we dive into tonight's selections, who do we have in the live chat? I see Raven Darkstar was here first. Good to see you, Raven. Casey Cooper as well. Good to see you. Travis Brown's hanging out. Says, evening, y'all. Just watched Fear Street Part 1 and Demon Seed. Thanks to last week's stream. Good choices. Good choices. Who else do we have? I see Joshua Lee's hanging out. Says, it's Wednesday once again, my dudes. It is Wednesday once again. Gabba Gabba to you wrote it no last names. Did you hear about the hermit werewolf? He was a misanthrope lycanthrope. Very cute. I like it. Lieutenant Jedi's here. Good to see you, bud. Appreciate you hanging out. Sarcasm as well, who says, oh, so I skipped Monstroid. Or Monstroid, but Monstroid. I can understand why you might have. Okay, but there's some interesting stuff there. We'll dive into it. Elizabeth S., good to see you. It's been a minute. I'm glad you're doing well. Thanks so much for hanging out. Charlie Welch is here, the only man on the internet you never make a bet with. Good to see you, Welchie. Says, enjoy the last Independence Day before the shit show in November, folks. Really soak it up. Yes, soak in that patriotic, energy, because we're going to need it come this fall. We really, really will. But good to see you, Charlie. Thanks so much for being here. See, at least we have this. At least we have this bastion to hang out and talk about, nerdy shit. We can nerd out about horror movies and stuff. So, Sir Caps, it's all good. Sir Caps, it's all good though, because I swapped that one for Fear Street 94 and Live with the and Late Night with the Devil. Late Night with the Devil is an excellent movie. Made excellent choice. Made very good choices, good sir. Very good choices. Omni, I will do my best. I will do my best to use the powers of my beard to protect all the people that I can. So, and yes, I do. I love Hump Day. I absolutely do, Charlie. You got it right. Joshua Lee. Oh, you had some minor surgery this past Monday. I hope you get better quick. Hope you're on the mend fast. So feel better soon. Jayverse says, I am lurking. Good to see you, Jayverse. Appreciate you being here. Delaying it till after the elections. Oh, I get that. Delaying HRT till after the elections. I understand. I really, really do. We got to see how. We don't want to see how it's going to play out, but we got to see how it's going to play out. I'm with you on that one. I absolutely am. Cindy Johnson's here. Good to see you, Cindy. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight. And I think I got everybody. Yeah, good starting out. So, man, oh man, oh man, so much cool stuff going on. I do want to say this before we dive into stuff. A good friend, of the show, recently messaged me because he has someone who has their own podcast. Actually got in touch with me. I hope you're on the Omni. Yep. But a good friend of me, who's a good friend of the podcast, recently reached out to me about my Jason statue because he's thinking about getting a Creature from the Black Lagoon life-size statue for his podcast, and he waited, so we connect right there. And I wanted to give his show a shout out because he does a live show, like a podcast, similar to what we do, but not exactly the same. But he also runs a bar where they do a month-long Halloween celebration every year, and he's wanting to do like a theme thing. Does a theme thing every year, and he wanted to do a Creature from the Black Lagoon theme. So he needed a full-size Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is my favorite, which is like my favorite Universal monster. Gilman's my favorite. So I wanted to give a shout out to his show. If you want to, if anybody's near that area, you can check that out. You can check out the stuff at nightmareonblockstreet.com. Nightmareonblockstreet.com, or you can go to pinpointfayetteville.com. Okay, pinpointfayetteville.com or nightmareonblockstreet.com for all the details about this awesome Halloween celebration. He's going to do the whole, like, it's like a cocktail bar, do like the whole Creature from the Black Lagoon setup. He does it every single year. So we want to give a shout out to a good friend of ours who is trying to bring some really cool stuff, really cool horror stuff to to the public, which I think is really, really neat. So we wanted to give them a shout out. And by the way, I will have to say, if you have not had an opportunity, and this may get some feedback, because I don't know how many people in the live chat have watched it yet, but if you haven't seen In a Violent Nature yet, I strongly recommend that you do see it, okay? Now, but be prepared, because I know the trailers send up the film in a very, very specific light. Now, the way it's shot is intriguing as shit. I love the way it's shot, and I'm not going to spoil anything on it, but you're going to, like, from the trailers, you'll expect one type of slasher film, but you're going to get something different. Now, I won't lie. It is visceral. It is brutal. It is an absolutely savage film. So I think that you will enjoy it, but it is a little bit different in the energy, the way the film paces itself out. So the editing is fantastic, and I think that y'all will thoroughly enjoy it. So I wanted to give In a Violent Nature my specific recommendation. Definitely check that film out when you get the opportunity. So I think that would be very, very cool. So definitely In a Violent Nature. Again, the reason I want to bring it up is because it just hit digital. So if you didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, you can definitely check it out via streaming right now. I think it's available for rent. So if you get the opportunity, check that out immediately. Josh Lee says, Jail, I don't know if you covered it last week, but I dropped the trailer for Heretic in the Discord. If you're yes, I did see that. I don't have it today set up in the Terror Tube. I do have another trailer because I figured everybody would want to see it. I think I'm maybe running a little bit behind, but people will want to dig this one because they might not have seen it. So I think it'll be pretty cool. And I don't know if any of the guys are going to join me tonight. I think they're all busy. I know that Johnny and Eugene have just been absolutely swamped on set right now. I know that they're working their tails off. Alex is in between work and such. And I think, and Aaron's got his stuff going on. I think he's dealing with a medication change. So, he needs relaxation time and chill out time, but we might see them in the live chat. So, but you never know. You never know. Somebody might pop by. I have no idea. But nonetheless, we got some stuff to talk about. We got cool stuff to talk about tonight. But first and foremost, before we dive into anything, I checked it out. I saw it because we've talked about it before on the show, and I've been very, very curious. Everybody knows that I am a big Robert Eggers fan. I love his stuff. I've been a fan. I loved The Witch, and I fucking loved The Lighthouse. Absolutely, I thought it was absolutely amazing. Willem Dafoe can do no wrong in my eyes, and Robert Pattinson's fantastic. Their chemistry was great. Robert Dafoe was just captivating in that, and then of course The Northman with Peter Skarsgård and him just kicking ass as just like the shredded crazy Viking berserker guy, and but yeah, I love Robert Eggers' work. I think he does fantastic stuff. And he has a new one coming out. Obviously, he is doing his version, Robert Eggers' version of Nosferatu, starring Lily Rose Depp and Willem Dafoe and a number of others. But I went ahead and found the trailer for it because I wanted to show everybody. So here we go. Queued up in the Terror Tube. This is the trailer for Nosferatu. So check this out. And we're gonna have a little chat about it.
All right, once again. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Questions?
Yeah! What are you on?
Looks like a frying pan and some eggs to me.
I'm gonna have to be taking your car today. See, I have some top secret clown business that supersedes any plans that you might have for this here vehicle.
What's that about clown business?
Do I stutter, bitch?
Come to me. Come to me. Hear my call. Come to me. Professor, my dreams grow darker. Does evil come from within us? Or from beyond?
It's coming.
He is coming.
He is coming to us.
He's coming.
Who is coming to you, my child? We are here encountering the vampire. Nosferatu.
Yes, that was the trailer for Nosferatu. So written and directed by Robert Eggers. It's a remake of the 1922 film with the same name, obviously based on Bram Stoker's novel Dracula. And it stars Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, Lily Rose Depp, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson, Simon McBurney, and Willem Dafoe, legendary Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe playing Professor Alban Eberhard von Franz, which I think is really, really cool. So, but Bill Skarsgård, who was the Northman, Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, which I think is going to be just badass. But yeah, it is a straight up remake of the original Nosferatu. Obviously, I think it looks fucking amazing. It really does. I loved his the way he's captured Victorian England at the time. Looks absolutely beautiful. The period. I think he's nailed it, because if it's one thing Robert Eggers does well, he does period pieces extremely competently. So as we saw in The Witch, as we saw in The Lighthouse, as we see in The Northman. So I think that he's firing on all cylinders on this one. This was rumored like 2 years ago that Robert Eggers was focusing on this back in 2022. And I remember I got the first inklings that there was going to be a remake back during when the log lurgy was spread. There was like, was Robert Eggers working on a new project? And it was like, yeah, and it was this bad boy. And then we saw that first poster, and it was Lily Rose Depp. Lily Rose Depp was like the first name attached to it. So, I think it's going to be absolutely stunning. But as it stands, the release date for Nosferatu is set for December 25th of this year. So we get a Christmas release. December 25th, 2024. It's going to be strictly to theaters, and then we're probably going to have to wait like the requisite 70, I think it's like a 75-day window before it comes to streaming. So I think this one is going to be sick. Joshua Lee, I am very curious how they're going to do like Bill Skarsgård as the how they're going to do Bill Skarsgård. Bill Skarsgård was it. Played Pennywise. His brother was in Northman. Sorry, I mixed those two up. My bad. That was my mix up. This is so many Skarsgårds. What are we going to do? So, but I'm deeply curious, so let us know down in the comments below, based on the trailer, what we have, Robert Eggers' past work with, his period piece work, if you think that this one's going to knock it out of the park. I think it's going to be amazing. So let us know down in the comments below, or weekinhorror@gmail.com, your thoughts on this year, on the upcoming remake of Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. I think it's going to be sick. I love gothic horror, and I think this is the first time anybody's like, legit trying to tackle the Nosferatu, remake of Nosferatu, and given it their all. So I think it's going to be really, really good. I'm totally hyped for this one, but definitely let us know what you think based on the strength of the trailer that we saw. I love that shot of the city of the city in Twilight, and then like the shadow of the hand coming up. Just amazing shit like that. So I'm gonna dig it. Left-handed Jedi says, if the lighthouse is any hint, it will be amazing. Agreed. Omniros Rose says, Skarsgård mania. It absolutely is. And it's wild because I fucking love Bill Skarsgård. I loved him in It. I've loved him in virtually all the major stuff he's done. He was great in Castle Rock. His role in Castle Rock. He was great in Hemlock Grove. Really, really good in Barbarian. Great as Pennywise. He's done a number of other things. John Wick Chapter 4, Boy Kills World was really, really good. But it's weird because I don't know if anybody's heard, but this is good. It's good that he has this one coming out, because if any of the early indicators are correct, the new Crow that's coming out, we watched the trailer here, but the new Crow that's coming out, the first takes on that was that the film was virtually unwatchable. So I'm kind of freaked about that. I'm kind of it's weird. And so if if the Crow is coming out and it's not good, then Bill's obviously going to need something serious, something solid to hang his hat on. But what better than a Robert Eggers film to come in and kick ass? So I don't know, but yeah, I've heard the early ruminate, the very first screenings of The Crow went out, and people were kind of it's absolute, I hate to say that a Crow movie is garbage, but it's absolutely unwatchable. So I don't know, I really don't. So I'm kind of curious about that, but I think Bill should be fantastic as Count Orlok. I think he'll be great. His physicality is fantastic. I myself, Joshua brings up, is curious if they'll keep the original Nosferatu design. I am very curious as to, because if they do, there's no doubt that Skarsgård can pull that off. He's got the physicality to pull off and make it ultra creepy. It's kind of to give it that kind of almost animalistic, almost alien kind of feel to the way Orlok moves. Pretty much, playing It, he could definitely do that. So he could that will definitely transfer over. So I'm kind of curious. Let us know down in the comments below your thoughts if you're looking forward to the new Nosferatu film. No, Omni, I should not be the Crow. I should absolutely not be the Crow. I have no business being the Crow at all. So that is not a role for me. I'm not tall enough. I'm built all wrong. I'm triangle build. You need someone who's rectangle build. You need that classic Hollywood actor build. And crows don't have beards. Oh yeah, I'm surprised Dafoe wasn't Orlok. You talk about Shadow of the Vampire. Yeah, Shadow of the Vampire with Malkovich and Dafoe was great. And of course Dafoe was fantastic in that one. But I can imagine he played it once, probably wanted to take tackle something new. So I loved him popping into these roles. I just dig. It's Dafoe. It's Willem Dafoe. It's fucking amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So very, very cool stuff. All right. So, as Alex likes to remind me so often, we have horror films to talk about tonight. So, let's dive into our selections, because we're going to kick this off. We got some good ones. We have good ones tonight. One that's kind of, like that. We'll dive into it. But, Nathan Fillion. Now, I know Nathan Fillion has voiced Green Lantern. He's voiced him in the animation, but it was always Hal Jordan. So, but that's for another podcast. That's for another podcast, Omni. Let's see. Here we go. First up, released July 9th, 2021. This is a fairly recent one, and I promise you we will not spoil it for you. It's still under still under the spoiler moratorium of 5 years. Close, but we like that. But let's check this out. We have Meander. Let's check out this trailer. Cue up the terror tube.
There, you see? I was able to figure it out. Now, aren't you glad I'm a teacher?
Wrong door.
He didn't account for the difference in time zones.
Help! Help! You're gonna die! Mama.
Yes, that was the trailer for Meander. So, a French sci-fi horror film directed by Matthew Turi and written by Matthew Turi and starring, make sure I get their names right, Gaia Weiss as Lisa and Peter Franzen as Adam. The film follows a young woman who is after was supposed to be an innocuous cab ride, suddenly is knocked out and wakes up completely dressed in this this specific outfit with this timer on her wrist, trapped in what seems to be a maze of pipes or something like that, where different sections are filled with various traps and they're kind of corralling her in specific ways and challenges to try and get through. She doesn't know why she's there. She doesn't know how she wound up there or what's going on. And the objective obviously is, to try to survive the scenario that she's in and figure out what the hell is going on and how she wound up there. So the first thing that I want to point out about Meander, obviously, yes, there's going to be a lot of comparisons to Cube on this one, but the differentiation between this one, Sarkaz is comparing this one to other labyrinthine-based films. I still hold Vincenzo Natali's original Cube in the highest regard, saying that I did enjoy certain aspects of not the film overall. Now, Paracord Princess, good to see you. It says French. Now I know why I couldn't understand what was going on. So the key on this one, and while comparisons will be made to Cube fundamentally, while the scenarios are roughly scenarios are pretty much the same, whereas Cube is room to room, this one's like pipe section to pipe section, but the differentiation is that you have other people involved. In Meander, we're following one individual, and we're following her journey through this whole scenario. And I will say, Gaia Weiss plays Lisa to the absolute hilt, because when you're alone, internalize it as far as acting goes, when the character is alone, internalizing the horrors of what's going on, as opposed to being trapped with a number of people that you don't know, a number of strangers, there's obviously different things. There's different areas that we can explore in that from a narrative aspect. Cube is fantastic because it enters into the realm of paranoia because of the other that you don't know. Cliques begin to form, people begin to find common interests, and then all of a sudden, lines of division are set, and then people begin to tear each other apart. We realize it's not really the cube is dangerous, the people you're with are even more dangerous. Whereas in this one comes down to how an individual can compartmentalize trauma, how they can deal with the things set in front of them, and we get to journey with them on that arc. And I enjoy that very, very much, because seeing an actor take that pace, and the pacing and the editing in the film is absolutely beautiful. It's an unbroken building of tension all the way to the climax, to the very, very, I will say, ambiguous climax in that respect. And that's what I dug about this one. Whereas Cube is an exploration of human psychology and the horrors of human psychology, but there is a definitive kind of like, this is where you are, this is how you get out when they eventually figure it out. And then while there is some ambiguity to it, it still felt fairly grounded. In this one, it's not so much. It's combinations of science fiction, of horror, maybe even a little bit of fantasy that kind of rolls into it. I loved the scenario a little bit different. It was an interesting take on the trapped in a confinement confinement trope. But I dug how they played this one because of the focus being on one person interacting with their environment, because it allows us to really, really attach or to sympathize or identify with that character as to how we would feel, given all of the things that she ends up dealing with. Yes, I said climax. So I really, really dug this one in that respect. As far as everything, I would say director Matthew really, really knocked this one out, because sound-wise, it's absolutely brilliant. He managed to capture the kind of like the essence of the claustrophobia, because that's really, really tough to do. Claustrophobic films are tough because when the camera's in there attempting to connect the audience with the protagonist, you're going to have a myriad challenges that you have to deal with. The lack of the ability for the protagonist to move around, the lack of their ability to see anything, what sound they're going to be able to see, because everything that they see and hear is going to tell you more about the outside world. And if you want to convey really being trapped, you need to limit the amount of information that they have access to. So, but when you limit the information they have access to, you limit what the audience has access to. Unless you want to take the risk of giving more information to the audience, but that can unfortunately kind of like dissociate you from the protagonist's ordeal, and kind of, so it's a fine balance that you have to walk. It's a tightrope. You have to walk from a narrative perspective and as a filmmaking perspective, because too much light in one scene, not enough light, too much sound, specific sounds at specific times. That is all very, very difficult. And it will definitely come out in the editing process. How they do sound design, how they do a sound mixing, and how they do color correction on this one. Everything is beautiful. And I thought it was a nice little tack that the environments of the tubes, whereas you could, with a movie like what was it? There was one with Klaus Kinski where the woman is trapped in the duct system, where he traps the woman in a duct system and tortures her. In that respect, that one, the environment never changes. So the environment is never like, because in this particular situation, when you're looking at it, the character moving through the environment, the environment is a part of the arc, and the environment should tell us as the audience that where she's at in her arc. Whether it's a color change, whether it's a trap change, whether whatever she interacts with or runs into, all of those let us know where she's at and what she's dealing with internally, emotionally, psychologically, and how she's compartmentalizing and internalizing that stuff. And that's important for us. Whereas in like the Klaus Kinski horror film that I'll remember later more than likely, in that one, the environment never changes. So fortunately, but that's why you need it to be a two-hander. You need Klaus's take from the outside and the girl's take from the inside. That's why that's important. Otherwise, when she's alone, we have to have something in the world letting us know what's going on so that we can move along with her, because obviously she can't, we can't read her mind. So the environment tells us what's happening. And the director and the cinematographer on this were absolutely brilliant. The traps are vicious and visceral, and she runs into stuff, and she absolutely gets, wrecked in this one. Not to the extreme degree that you would expect in Cube, because it definitely feels like, whereas in Cube, especially in the first one, there is a definite punishment vibe to that one. So as far as that goes, you know what you're going to see. It's almost like, like this kind of like strange execution style that they're going through this, kind of going through this gauntlet before they might get executed or not. That you never get that feel in this one. You get it like an almost impossible task to try and get through if she can just muster. So it felt like the energy of Saw, but not with the extreme gore or the kind of like convoluted nonsense, but the sense of the character must be willing to push through to those extremes in order to get to the other side, especially when you when you come into that kind of like twist at the end, when she like the light in the tunnel and she finally gets there. But I dug the ant farm effect is kind of like what they capture really, really well. It's kind of like that, like Sarkaz brings up the wide angle long shots. So like that ant farm effect I thought was kind of interesting, when we get the kind of view in that respect. And then of course we spend a lot of time with her as well. So I dug what sound they're gonna see. Did I say that? What sound they're gonna hear and what things they're going to see. If I misspoke, I apologize. So I'm sorry about that, rodent. What sound they're gonna see. It's like, was it Ghostbusters? Oh, shh. It's like, listen, you smell that? So, but yeah, the psychological group dynamics, Meander was more of a character discovery arc. Exactly. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, and I'm not going to spoil this in any way, the narrative goes in a very, very specific direction, okay? But this is one of those scenarios that I think people might have an issue with, because in a movie like Meander, it is very, very easy for the director, or even for given that he wrote and directed, for you to paint yourself into a corner where you're trying to get a character from A to B. That's the important thing. And the tension building throughout the whole thing is fantastic. Now, the movie almost got me to Ninth Gate territory, where we have this beautiful setup all the way through, like up until the last 5 minutes, and I get what happened with Ninth Gate. I get why it happened. I understand why they did it that way, and it still pisses me off to this day. I still have yet to watch that movie again because I'm still angry about it. Meander kind of does the same thing. It's very easy to paint oneself into a specific corner on this one, because as a filmmaker, there has to be, obviously, a give at the end. In the third act, there has to be a give. Where is this going? So it has to play out in some direction. And you have a number of choices as to what you're going to try to convey. But given the level of tension and the deep psychological kind of journey that she goes through, and the things that she encounters when she's in the maze, okay, and the whole setup, the almost kind of like, it's weird because it almost at times it feels cheap and at times it feels alien, as she's moving through the different environments. So as she's doing that, the tension building and what how he utilizes music, how he utilizes Foley sound, and of course lighting in this one, and the cinematography builds to this amazing conclusion. And some people, it's subtitled. I watched it subtitled. So, but the way that plays out and the way you wind up is really, really, really important. And I feel what happened with Meander was a lot of people were like along for the ride until it hit until basically you wind up painting yourself into a corner, and that third act does not play out the way you'd anticipate. But I think it was the best that he could do, because it doesn't play out the way you think it does, or doesn't play out the way you think it should. It doesn't play out in the worst way possible. It plays out in a way that you would not expect, which I thought was very interesting. I think it was a way, kind of in the end, he kind of realized that we've gotten ourselves to this point. Where can we go with this? Well, formulaically, it can either be like a punishment scenario, it could be an escape scenario where she's learned something, it could be a reuniting scenario where she's reunited with like this or whatever. But those are all kind of like expected, like, and one of us like kind of like the good ending or the middling ending or the bad ending was just like a Silent Hill film. It's like, no, the important thing was try to do it differently. And I applaud the director. I applaud Matthew for taking it in another direction, for going in a new place that I don't think a lot of people have gone before, especially in the confinement genre, in like the confinement horror genre, especially given how brutal, the traversing the maze was with all the traps and all the nasty shit that she runs into. So, I mean, if you watch it, especially, there's a couple in there that are just like, they're really, really cringe moments, but just really painful looking moments. But going through that, there's an expectation, and because he does subvert expectations, I will give it that. It's a subversion of expectations, but where are you going to go? And I like the risk, but unfortunately, in my eyes, I don't think the risk played out as well as it could have. It definitely wasn't the worst it could possibly be. It wasn't like a Ninth Gate scenario, but it wasn't where you don't wind up where you anticipate, and you definitely wind up somewhere where you really didn't see it coming. So I will give it that. I will. But what's important about this one is that is the journey. I don't think That's what's great about Meander. It's the journey in this one. It's experiencing the character and moving along with them on their arc, and showcasing just how fantastic shooting this kind of film is, because you're in such a tight space with one actor, that's very, very at all times is very, very intimate, and that when you're in there, when you're in the shit, as an actor would say, when you've been in there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you're intimately familiar with this, and the camera is right there, capturing those every moment, and eventually, actors can shut that out, the camera's not there, but they're deep in that character. It comes across stunningly in this one. It's beautifully shot, beautifully cut. Pacing is fantastic. So if you can forgive that kind of the denouement, if you can forgive that, then you're really gonna love this one. You really are, because there's a lot of little special things to take out of this particular film, and just something new that comes along. I'm not going to spoil the end for you. You can definitely check it out if you didn't get the opportunity. Sarcasm was saying, Cube was Sarcasm was saying, yeah, hated the ending myself. Think we could brainstorm a much better denouement. I kind of agree with you on that one. And Sarcasm said, did you catch the implication that the corpses she passed were without spoiling? Okay, so without spoiling too much, there are a lot of little hints, okay? You could almost say it wasn't just a Cube vibe, but a Cube 2 vibe as well. Okay, there's something definitely different going on here, but that's the ambiguity. The film may actually be a little too ambiguous for some people's taste. There are questions that are left unanswered. There are threads that do not get pulled. You're gonna have to fill in those blanks. It's damn near expected. You're going to have to do that. But then again, this is French cinema. Okay. I mean, that I've seen it in a number of the French films, in Martyrs, and Inside. There's all kinds of little threads that don't get pulled, and questions or things that you're gonna have to use your imagination to kind of fill in. As what exactly is going on, because we never get the whole story. But I love that for French cinema, because in reality, we rarely ever do get the entire, because obviously we don't have that kind of omniscient view on things. So sometimes we don't get everything. Sometimes we don't get it all. And that's what I kind of dug about this one. It kind of struck me in that way as a filmmaker. I personally would love to shoot a movie like this one time, to write a movie like this, and just that to capture that claustrophobia effectively. It's so technically difficult, and Matthew pulls it off with aplomb. He really, really does. But given that one, claustrophobia, I know, is difficult for some people, because it's a very, very real. Even I at times can get a little claustrophobic, and you can feel the walls kind of closing in on you when you feel trapped. Nobody likes feeling trapped. So my question for the audience tonight is, given that how much time in Meander we spend in the pipe with her, and given films just like it, because I think this one was a bit more claustrophobic than Cube was, what do you think, or what is your favorite? What do you think is the best claustrophobia horror? Best horror film where claustrophobia was the trope. Where we're stuck in a small space with the protagonist, with the hero, and now we gotta make our way out. So let us know down in the comments below, or at weekinhorror@gmail.com what your thoughts are. The best or your favorite claustrophobia horror trapped in one space. And I love the ones one of my, it wasn't a horror film, it was a thriller, but one of my favorites is Phone Booth. Phone Booth is fantastic, because stuck in that box, but he can see outside of it, but he can't really go anywhere, and just trapped as the tension rises. So there's a sniper on him like this, and I loved how Colin Farrell did that. It was such a long time ago, early in his career, but I loved that. But claustrophobia horror is always really, really good. I'll tell you, as far as claustrophobia scenes go, Aliens was solid. With Bishop. Yes, wrote in OS names. Aliens. With Bishop. Crawling through the tube like that. As an actor, you see how tight that is. I don't know how Lance Henriksen did that, but yeah. So intense stuff. But yeah, love me some claustrophobia horror. There was a really good one with Ryan Reynolds. I remember that he was trapped. That Ryan Reynolds was trapped in a. I think he was buried alive. I think, if I remember correctly. I can't remember the name of it though. But I remember that he had his phone with him. So that was what they were shooting, was him. It was very Hitchcockian. It was very Hitchcockian thriller, if I remember correctly. I can't remember the title of it. Someone's going to remind me in the live chat. Oh, good ones. The Thing. Nice. Cube, no doubt. Damn, Die Hard. That's great, J-Verse. I like that. Kill Bill Volume 2. Nice. But But yeah, fantastic stuff. Love that stuff. But definitely give that. Ooh, Life Pod, good. Don't forget the scene with Dallas and the scene. Oh yes, in the original Alien, absolutely. Devil, the elevator version, yes. Devil, that was good. Trapped in that small space with a whole bunch of people, great stuff. Oh, love it, definitely. All right, let's move on to our second choice tonight. Released July 9th, 2021. Still a few years ago, so no spoilers on this one. We have continuing the trilogy that we started last week. Fear Street Part 2, 1978. So we're going from 1994 to 1978. Yes, Buried. Thank you, Joshua Lee. Good stuff. Let's check out this trailer. Cue up the terror tube.
When do we go get Bridget?
Relax. She's safe as long as he's here.
Pour all you want. Pour all you can. You won't beat me, because I'm a leprechaun. Corn.
Why won't he die?
Get away from him! But he stopped breathing! No!
Hello? It's not over.
You are our last chance. How do we end this?
You have to go back.
To 1978. The first day of camp.
Looks like blood.
Do you have a better idea?
Maybe.
Who are you?
Nick Good.
Bad things always happen to shady siders.
You feel it, don't you? There's something holding us down.
Who's seen us? Run!
One way or another, you're gonna die tonight.
There it is. It's not just a diary, it's a map.
I'm not letting you die.
My sister's still out there!
Go, guys, go!
We can end this.
You swore.
It's becoming a habit.
I'll survive. I will survive. Hey, hey.
Yes, that was the trailer for Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Fantastic, fantastic. All right, so this one also directed by Lee Janiak and story by Lee Janiak, Phil Grazidy, and Zach Olkowitz, based on Fear Street by R.L. Stine, and of course starring Sadie Sink, Emily Rudd, Ryan Simpkins, McCabe Sly, Ted Sutherland, Gillian Jacobs, Kiana Madera, Benjamin Flores Jr., Olivia Scott Welch, and Chiara Aurelia. So the film picks up immediately after the events of the first film of 1994, and follows follows the heroes from that one as they are trying to solve the possession issue of what was it? Trying to remember so many names in this one. So Sam is possessed. Olivia Scott Welch's character Sam is possessed, and Dina and her brother have taken her to the last survivor from the Camp Nightwing incident to try and figure out how to save Sam, because Sam is now possessed by Sarah Fear, the witch. And so in order to save her, they go to Cindy Berman. Oh, no, they go to played by Gillian Jacobs. They go to what's her name? Christine Berman. They go to her to figure out what the hell is going on and what could they possibly do to save Sam. And she takes them on Ziggy, is what she goes by. Ziggy takes them on a journey, a flashback to the past, as we hear the events that happened in 1978 at Camp Nightwing, at the Camp Nightwing massacre that they hinted at in the first film. Now, number one, first and foremost, I think everybody's going to agree with me on this one. Okay, yes, Casey Cooper says never go to a camp with a name like Nightwing. Agreed. So the one thing that I obviously that this trilogy gets me, and this one is even better for me because the soundtrack. The soundtrack is on point. It once again nailed it every single time, and all the great ones, all the fantastic songs from the 70s that you would expect to be there are there, plus a couple of few that are thrown in there. Isn't this giving spoilers for the first movie? Not too much. I don't. Okay, at this point, you should have watched the first one because we talked about it last week, and of course, but we're not going to spoil what happens in this one. Okay, before we move on to the third one. So I think I may be cutting it close, Joshua. Maybe cutting it close, but I will try not to spoil too much. But the soundtrack in this one is gonna like everybody's gonna dig on this one. So Sarkaz is once again really dug on the soundtrack, but it is basically R-rated Goosebumps. Not saying that's a bad thing because that generation needs the adult step up with the nostalgic vibe. Absolutely. So that's what I dug about this one so much. The energy is definitely different from 1978 from 1994. Now, from 1994, there is kind of an expectation of what slasher films are in the post, basically 1994, and that's 2 years before Scream came out. And you could tell that Wes Craven had a huge influence on 1994, like the works of Wes Craven. So that was the kicker there, because even though technically in the film world, Scream wouldn't be out for another 2 years, there were definitely Scream vibes throughout the entire film. So they took big effects, big inspiration from there. Obviously, in 1978, we have the early slashers to take inspiration from, and that would number one be Friday the 13th, with a little bit of Halloween in there as well. So, and that's what I dug about this one. The energy of those two doing meta horror and your classic slasher films from the 70s and the 80s, that they're so wildly different. So the way we approach them as an audience, the way the film approaches us to tell its narrative, and that's what I dug about this one. Lee Janiak knows how to capture these different eras of the slasher genre and is absolutely pitch perfect. The practical effects were spot on, and they do not hold back at all. There is no point at where, even though sarcasm say it's basically R-rated Goosebumps, there is at no point where this film holds back. Now, there are some things as far as gore-wise it doesn't show. It doesn't, like, to some extreme. And there is some sexy scenes where they go very, very carefully to not go too extreme, but they definitely hint at what is there. So you're not going to get like the full-on TNA feel of like a lot of like, the 70s and 80s slasher films, a lot of the stuff that came out. You're going to get hints of that. Because remember, it's still kind of like adolescent, but where do you draw the line? That was the thing that got me, is they do a beautiful job of walking right up to the line of 70s and 80s slasher films, of all the classic tropes. They walk right up to the line, but they don't cross it. But when I say they don't cross it in the terms of sexuality, but they absolutely go the distance. And when it comes to like, people who are killed, there's a bunch, like literally a bunch of campers, and violently with an axe. It's like brutal. They do not hold back. Axes in the face. People getting just, like body parts everywhere and shit. They do not hold back on that. Plus, there's some pretty like hardcore scene, pretty brutal scenes when, how people are reacting. Because the whole, like, the rivalry between Shady Side and Sunnyvale, the rivalry between the two towns is prevalent here at Camp Nightwing, where they, like literally the camp is set up to, these two groups kind of like are antagonistic towards one another. And there's a lot of like crazy shit that's going on, shit that you wouldn't expect to see today. But then again, it was the 70s and, people got away with that shit just because it's a different time. I love the capturing of that. So if you were expecting, if you go in expecting like really, that's the great thing, is the nostalgia of it. If you go in expecting like, the brutal slashers that we grew up with, Friday the 13th, part 1, part 2, Halloween, Halloween 2 wouldn't be out just yet. But of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and shit like that, you're going to get this. Not to mention the ghost aspect to it. But I love this one because as savage as 94 was, this one is even more so. So it definitely feels like, it goes back, and I dug that shit, even though, and I can't get over the nostalgia on it. I really can't. It's hard for me not to. Now, as far as filming goes, filming on location, always a lot of fun. Production wise, they set up the entire camp itself. So the whole thing was built to spec. So like I love, that's what I dug about this one. Like, looking into the production on this one, the money that was spent, that Netflix was willing to spend to create Camp Nightwing, was goddamn impressive. They legitimately created a summer camp that these kids could run around in, that didn't feel like it was pulled from somewhere else. So they generated everything organically. So they just built it around a lake is what they did. So I loved that, and set it up so that we get to the nostalgia feel, but don't feel like we're reusing shit that we've seen in the past. They capture everything beautifully. Production value is on point. This practical effects are amazing as well. It's shot excellently. And the lead up to the massacre, what's going on, it feeds back into the, takes threads from 1994. Everything is connected wonderfully, and it doesn't miss a beat. Not a single plot thread is dropped. And plus we're left wanting more, because this is obviously the second one in a trilogy. So we have to set it up going into 1666, which I thought was going to be absolutely fantastic. Capturing in the 70s was brilliant. If you notice all those little details that are in there, not only from the clothing wise, from hair, makeup, clothing, but also technology wise, where they found that Hitachi tape player, I have no idea. I've looked one up, and they're pretty freaking expensive, and oftentimes they don't really work that well, and they have a tendency to eat tapes. So I was kind of impressed by that one, but I loved how they captured all of this stuff. Sir Cab says they only showed the counselors graphically. All the kid violence was implied, but never showed. Exactly, yeah. Like they walk right up to the line, and the counselors, they get it bad. The counselors get it like really, really, really gnarly. You know, especially multiple. There was one in there that I felt so bad. You knew it was going to happen. Was the raven-haired girl from Shady Side with the douchebag from the other side, and when the killer walks in. Now, I don't want to spoil who it is or how it happens or what goes down, but it is freaking savage. Absolutely brutal. One thing that I think people will dig is the way this one is shot. There's a lot of inspiration obviously taken from Sean S. Cunningham. You will recognize a lot of the framing, and a lot of the cinematography is very, very familiar. More from Cunningham in the original Friday the 13th than on, I would say, Carpenter from the original Halloween, although there is some Halloween inspirations. You'll definitely say that was definitely pulled from Carpenter's work. But you'll get those hallmarks, those wide shots of the lake, the people interacting moments. You'll get those straight up Sean S. Cunningham, straight up, inspiration from there, and a little bit of I would say Friday the 13th Part 2. Even though technically, in wise, I don't think it wouldn't have, neither one of those would have been released, but you definitely feel those vibes coming throughout this whole thing. Not to mention when the killer finally shows up, and you saw it in the trailer, the Baghead killer with the axe. Baghead was the original inspiration there, so love little things like that. But we're not going to spoil who's under that bag, because that's very, very important to the plot. So if you haven't had an opportunity to watch it, definitely check this one out. It continues the vibe from 1994 perfectly. We get excellent pacing and excellent editing throughout. Not to mention, I got to give it up for Sadie Sink, who was fucking amazing. So when I heard that Sadie was going to be in this one, and obviously we all know Sadie Sink from Stranger Things, and when young actors like that kind of like land into a role that kind of blows up for them, and I think you'll see this. A number of and I hate to I feel like I'm throwing Finn Wolfhard under the bus on this one. Finn feels like he's like running the same character every time he plays, because his Stranger Things character was so popular, and it seems like he's running on that and the other stuff he's done outside of that. I feel those Stranger Thing vibes. Okay. But Sadie Sink is the range that she's shown and where she's willing to take a character and the fearlessness that she's done so, I think is really, really badass. And I think and it really shows itself when we get to 1666 next week. You're going to really see that shine. But I dug that I did not see any elements from her character of Max over on Stranger Things. Completely different characters. And for someone as young as she is, that is a fantastic talent that she has, where I did not see any connective tissue whatsoever. She came at it completely new. And if you haven't seen Darren Aronofsky's The Whale, you get to see her in a whole new light as well. So I think she's doing fantastic work, just brilliant shit. She's a standout in this one, as well as Emily Rudd. Emily Rudd is fantastic as well. I mean, as her sister. So Emily Rudd is great. Sadie Sink is fantastic. Olivia Scott Welch, she was only in there very, very briefly, but I thought everybody was on point. And of course, McCabe Sly and Ted Sutherland were fantastic. So If you haven't had the opportunity to watch this one, definitely watch 1994 first. That way you can get those little details going in before you watch 1978, and I think that you'll really dig this one. And of course, it's a beautiful setup for 1666, which we will be talking about next week, okay? Because the story's not over yet. So, the question that I have, given how savage, it was far more savage than part 1 was. I would say 1994 was a good appetizer, okay? And this was a fantastic main course. All right? 78 was a fantastic main course. Given the brutality of it, I wanted to ask the audience, best part 2 kill, okay? Because there are so many and some fantastic setups, okay? Best part 2 kill, okay? Who had the best one? Because there are a number of them, and I don't want to call out names, just because if I call out names, that'll spoil who gets got. But let us know down in the comments below or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Best kill in part 2, the best setup, the best grab, or the one that made you just kind of jump, or the one that just got you that was was hardcore. Let us know, because I'm really, really curious. Sir Kev says the one swing beheading. Oh yes, yeah, in the friggin' outhouse. Yes. See, there's some really good ones that'll get you. There really are. The way that these moments, these key moments are set up are just beautiful. And that's what I dug, is that there's no just like in the 70s, there's no ultra reliance on jump scares in this one, which I dug, because it would have been so easy to fall back on this modern formulaic desire to just jump scare the audience, but it doesn't. Janiak beautifully relies on atmosphere and the sound and the scoring to build up to what's going to happen, and then hits us with the violence. So it's careful editing, careful sound choice, careful scoring, and cinematography. That's where it's at. She lets the atmosphere build itself. It doesn't require jumping at the frigging, camera to freaking scare you, or to freaking get a rise out of you. That's what I love so much. Okay, because it could have been so different. This it would have been easy to drop the ball on this one and fall into easy choices, instead of really paying attention to what we loved about the 70s and giving us what we love. So I know that you'll dig it. If you grew up watching 70s and 80s horror like I did, you're gonna fucking love 1978. In fact, there might be some moments you'd be like, "Oh, this should have gone a little bit further. Should have shown us what happened." But yeah. And yeah, Sir Kevin says there's another one coming up, tentatively named Prom Queen, which is a continuation of the Fear Street of R.L. Stine's Fear Street series, I believe. So we're gonna find out. But yeah, let us know down in the comments below or at weekinhorror@gmail.com the best kill in part 2, because there were a lot of really good ones, and a couple of them were just kind of like, oh fuck, but there's some really good and some unexpected ones. So let us know. I'm curious what people are going to say. Just let us know. And I know I'm not trying to spoil anything, but you don't have to do it like Sarcasm did. Sarcasm didn't spoil it, So, but yeah, I think it's going to be cool. Y'all are going to dig it. It's a fucking good. I'm really enjoying going back and watching this trilogy and watching them once a week. I'm digging it. Because when it originally came out, I watched it all at once. I watched it all in one sitting. So, but yeah, I'm digging it. I really am. Raven Darkstar says I'll have plenty of jump scares for the next few days. Oh, bummer. Well, I hope everything's working out okay. But let's move on to our next selection. A very, very weird one. Or say, well, I got some things to say about this one. But released July 11th, 1980. So shortly after I entered the world, So it was what was it? Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th was right before I came into the world, and this one is shortly after I came out of the world. This is fucking amazing. So yes, Monstroid, July 11th, 1980, a movie that is officially or soon to be officially as old as I am. Monstroid, yes, originally titled Monstroid. Let's check out this trailer. Cue up the terror tube. I really hope y'all love the terror tube.
damn shids.
Monster, a true story of a legend that becomes an unholy horror.
Oh my God, is that an eye?
I don't know.
You must cleanse your sinful souls and drive out these evil creatures.
Over there. My God.
Film World magazine calls it the terror film of the year.
Believe it. It's as big as a whale. What happened?
Monster, starring Jim Mitchum, John Carradine, Phil Carey, and Andrea Hartford.
Sorry, I was trying not to laugh so bad. But yes, that is the trailer for Monstroid, originally titled Monster, but they changed it to Monstroid. I'm not sure why. But yes, written and directed by Kenneth Hartford, starring James Mitchum, John Carradine, Philip Carey, and Anthony Isley. The film supposedly based on a true story of an event that took place down in Chimeo, Colombia in 1971, which obviously it obviously was not. The film follows how to describe this. A corporation has a production factory in Chimeo, and they've been dumping pollutants into the local lake, and that has somehow either created or awakened a monster that is now killing the local populace. And in order to keep things quiet, the corporation has sent a fixer down there who then works with a local journalist to try and uncover what's happening and eventually stop the threat. So, wow. So, where to start on this one? Now, first and foremost, this is one of those examples of a studio trying to capitalize on the eco horror sensation that was currently going on, that was big in this, that kind of picked up in the 70s. After Earth Day was established, eco horror became a big thing, where all of a sudden, the environment turning against man, or man affecting the environment to a degree. Now, there was hints of this back in the 50s with the advent of nuclear war, where after post World War II landscape, we got a lot of these types of movies where nuclear fallout or radiation became the big bad. Whereas in the 70s, the 80s, there was lightning became alien lightning, or lightning makes things come to life. In the post World War II, it was always about nuclear radiation and shit like that. But when Earth Day got established, which I believe was in 72, if somebody correct me on that if I'm getting the year wrong, but it was in the 70s when Earth Day was established, and polluting the planet became a hot button topic. That became a big thing. How can governments cease to do this? This saw an influx of eco horror themed films of nature rising up against man because of the stuff that, that mankind is doing to nature. And so like the earth rising up against us and the effects that we have. So this kind of takes tropes from the 50s, from the post-World War II landscape, and puts kind of like an eco-horror spin on it because, it's a creature that is either awakened by or created by the pollutants being dumped, recklessly into the lake and resulting in this monster that's killing everything. April 1970, thank you very much, is when that was established. So that's where the film is following in this, where the film is kind of coming along, is where it's running. Now, the problem is that when you're doing a movie like this, movies like this, especially in the 70s, were expensive, okay? And so you obviously need to put the money where the money needs to go, and that is in your monster. Now, the problem is you can see when you have a monster like that, you want to run the Jaws route. And that's what they try to do. If you'll notice, throughout the bits and pieces, throughout the film, it hits the tropes of Jaws, almost perfectly, because this one came out in 1980. Jaws was 1974 or 1974 or 76 when that came out. Shit, I can't remember. I'm forgetting my dates. But Jaws came out, and that became like the formulaic trope because that was the summer blockbuster. And this one attempted to try to kind of capitalize the same thing, but instead of using a giant shark, this was a big like dinosaur-like monster. Even though the poster does not show a dinosaur-like monster. Though the poster, that yellow poster with the Monstroid, very, very minimalistic poster, which I really dug. I dug the minimalist poster, but that thing was more like a blob monster with tentacles and shit, which this thing, 75, thank you, which this thing obviously is not. The reason that there is that when your brain fills up, you tend to forget. Yeah, I'll lose like stuff and it'll come back to me later. It's there. I just can't, I can't locate it. The big thing on Monstroid, even though films like this did have a tendency to kind of pop off, which was this film's opportunity to kind of capitalize on this, is that this is a perfect example of shit going on behind the scenes that winds up fucking over your production in the end. Now, the first and foremost, big issue, the money was not put into the monster like it should have been. That was the big issue there. But the reason for that is because of what was going on in the director's chair. Okay? The director's chair was Kenneth Hartford, okay? And Kenneth Hartford had some real problems, trying to make this movie. And it was co-written with Herbert L. Strock, and Herbert L. Strock is kind of like the mind behind everything. And so there were rumors that there was difficulty not only in what was going to be done creatively wise, but how they were going to cast this thing as well, and how the monster was going to be portrayed. Now, if you notice, they followed the Jaws trope in the film where you see a scant bits of the monster, and then the monster is eventually revealed as to what it is. You get like a hand, or you get like I guess like a paw, claws. You get moments like that. People reacting to it off screen. Okay, you get moments like that until eventually the big reveal where the thing is in the lake. I feel they did it a little early on, and it kind of like, throws things off because now all of a sudden we've established this giant freaking monster that looks nothing like what the poster said it was going to look like, and it looks extremely cheap. Even though I thought there were some good moments. There's a good moment where the girl's on the beach and she gets left by the guy she's having an affair with, and the monster comes up and like grabs her for some reason. She doesn't run away. She just falls down and goes, and then the monster like picks her up. There's a good, I was like, and then so like eating her, like, bites her and have like, eats her like, like a dog is eating something, like shakes her around. I thought it was pretty good, but it was also really, really dark. So you couldn't see much of anything. But problems behind this is what led to this like kind of like this Monstroid of a film that we see. And so that's the difficulty in what happened here. And when you have too many cooks in the kitchen in that essence. So there was difficulties with what the monster was going to look like, the difficulties in how they were going to display it on screen, given how much given how cheap the monster was and what they could do with it. There was problems with casting because initially, I believe, remember correctly, it was originally supposed to be Keenan Wynn was originally billed in some of it, but Keenan Wynn never shows up. And there were John Carradine cast this one. This is towards the end of John Carradine's career. John Carradine, legendary character actor, typically played villains, and they throw John Carradine in there as this kind of like, essentially, John Carradine is the Crazy Ralph trope. Is what only he's like the priest of the village, of like the local village. So he's like the priest that everybody's going to. But he's kind of the crazy Ralph where he's running around telling people to beware sin, the devil's come to take us. And actually it's a giant monster. The problem is that they never capitalize on much of anything because they're so busy trying to replicate the Jaws formula that we wind up wanting to watch Jaws instead of watching this. Not enough money was put into the monster to make it effective. Not enough, time was was put into the script to try and make it a little bit different. The novelization itself was actually better because it added stuff in, or there was stuff in that was supposed to be in the film that didn't make it. And so this one winds up as kind of like an obvious cash grab, an obvious rip, which I thought was deeply problematic, which is why this one kind of falls to the bottom of the barrel, and probably why it's, I don't know if MST3K covered this one, but they definitely would. So, Sarcasm, when you have to deep dive into Backstage Lore to defend why it was so bad, it was just bad. It was bad. But there's a reason why it was bad, okay? That's what's fucked up. The people that were cast in this were actually really, really talented. James Mitchum, very talented. John Carradine, very talented. Philip Carey, Anthony Isley, Andrea Hartford, all of them established actors and very, very talented. You can see that in their other bodies of work. They were attached to this one before all the shenanigans began. You put your cast in place before the shit hits the fan. It wasn't until they started Principal that shit really started going sideways on this particular one. And you can see it because there is such tonal shifts between sections of the film that it's almost like there's two directors. And that's because there kind of was. Okay? Like I said, once again, too many cooks in the kitchen in this one. And that's what made this one problematic. So you have too much input coming, and people being pulled in different creative ways, which is why you also get some really weird character shifts at certain points in the film, which was really, really obnoxious to me. Everything in it puts the audience off, and they do not do what they are supposed to do in what is ostensibly supposed to be a monster film where the focus should be the monster. Chaos behind the scenes will result in this one, and that's why Monstroid drops the ball when it could have been, a classic example. There are definitely today, you look at a movie like The Host, the Korean film The Host, which is fantastic. Which is essentially the exact same thing, exact same movie. Okay, just a little bit differentiation on the protagonist, but dumping shit into the water creates a monster. Monster comes up, starts eating the populace. Then you have to stop it and save the girl. Pretty much it. Whereas this one was pretty much just Jaws. Only there's never really an overwhelming threat. Whereas Jaws, there's the threat that the shark could escape out into the ocean. But here it's confined to a lake. And so they're going to use it. That's the problem right there. Raven Darkness said that's what happens when you hire Hannibal Smith in a rubber monster suit. Fucking love it. I love it. But yeah, that's the problems on this one. So all kinds of issues that, developed along this way. And of course, making monster movies can be challenging. We see that we've talked about a number of them, especially through the 50s and the 60s, where people have different ideas as to where the films are going to go or where it's supposed to go, like how certain people are supposed to be utilized. Angel Rivera says Prophecy with a contaminated grizzly. Now, see, that's fantastic. Prophecy with the big mutated bear. That is how you do that correctly. And even though Prophecy also follows the Jaws formula, Prophecy stood on its own because there was cohesion behind the camera. Everybody knew what they were doing, and everybody knew what to expect. It's the same reason Grizzly works, but Grizzly 2 did not. So you've got to have the Monstroid is another example of needing to have all your ducks in a row before you go into Principal. Because if you don't, you're going to wind up getting surprised by shit. And so planning, we talk about it often on this show. Planning behind the scenes, get everything done in pre-production so that you're surprised by as minimal shit. It would have been so much better to have everything set and put the money in the monster and then get the monster in the lake and then all of a sudden it doesn't work, or it falls apart or whatever. It's not weatherproof or not waterproof enough in order to function well enough to be this big giant thing that's almost like, I think the final model, for the big overhead for the helicopter shots, the damn thing was almost like 40 feet long in order to convey like the size of this thing. So even though in other areas of the movie, a 40-foot dinosaur-looking monster that's walking around on land is, able to hide the way it does, which is kind of silly because there's like some slasher vibes that are kind of taken there like that, like watching through the bushes and shit. Absolutely silly. When technically it's a fucking dinosaur. So nonetheless, you get those problems all across the board, and you see them, they become very, very apparent. But it will definitely remind you that there's better shit out there. There are better films out there that do these things better. Now, the monster itself, it's hard to say. From what I gathered from reading about this thing is that the monster was cobbled together very, very quickly, and the people that were in charge of building the thing didn't want much press about it. There's a couple of close-up shots that work kind of well, because you can build like a head, or you can build like an eye, that the eye can move within the socket. You can build these moments, but the big final full monster piece was not very good. And if you look carefully, if you look closely, you can tell the differentiation between the close-up shots where they're just working with one piece, where it's like, we need a head shot. We need like the shot of the head going on like that. And there's a lot of there's some decent articulation there. The problem is it's too dark. And that's because the coloration on the thing was really, really bad. And plus the detail wasn't there on the big head when you're making just the headpiece. You'd think it would be there, but the focus was to get the articulation done. And so the focus was put on those things, but never in the right areas. So, but you can tell the difference when you see it in the big wide shots when the thing reveals itself. They do it in the trailer. How do you open the trailer? By spoiling your monster coming out of it. I know it's titled Monstroid or Monster It Came from the Lake, but you just spoil it by being, there's the monster. That's what it is? How do they expect to get any kind of return when you spoil what the monster looks like in the opening frames of the trailer? Silly. And it was bad decisions like that run throughout the entire thing. And you'll see them. They stand out like sore thumbs. And of course, when you see those big wide shots of the monster cannot do what it does in the close-up shots, because those are different pieces. So they're not able to replicate it on the macro scale to get the big monster to do what the smaller ones did in order to get those shots. So, you guys have got me. You look closely and see Hannibal smoking his cigar. Okay, there's got to be an inside joke that I'm not aware of here, of the Hannibal thing. We're taking a moment. Even though we're talking about horror films, I'm taking a moment here, because I've seen this Hannibal thing. Hannibal Smith? What am I missing? Hey, Extra J, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. What am I missing in the Hannibal thing? Someone's got to explain this to me. This is probably something really, really simple that maybe I am aware of and I'm just not recalling it. I feel like I'm walking into an embarrassment. That's what I feel like. I feel like there's like the door labeled embarrassment, and I'm just about to walk right through it. So Hannibal Smith, A-Team. A-Team Hannibal. Okay. Is that where it... Let's put a close of Rosebud Slay right on poster of Citizen Kane. So, okay, we're getting so A-Team references. I know Hannibal from A-Team. I'm aware of that. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe there's something more going on. I have no idea. But Sir Kevin says, even worse when it looks like a papier-mâché water fountain. Agreed. There were just not good moments there. And of course, they stand out like sore thumbs. And of course, it's going to make you pine for the monsters that do it right. For the films that do the monster correctly, that put the effort in, like anything Godzilla. I got some mentions of Gamera, even Gamera in there, Mothra as well. But yeah, so that's the question I kind of have for the audience. Given how basic Monstroid was, both formulaic in its narrative, the obvious eco-horror cash grab, riffing completely off of Jaws, and then for some reason failing to do so, everybody wanting to kind of do their own thing. But there are definitely better, like Lake Monster or like Sea Monster, whatever, monster movies. So I would give us a recommendation. Let us know down in the comments below. What is your favorite? Was your favorite, or what do you think is the best Lake Monster horror? Oh, this movie was never covered by MST3K, Riff Tracks, or Cinematic Titanic. They should cover it. They should. They should definitely cover it. I think they should. But if it's so bad, even they won't. They did Track of the Moon Beast, and they won't do this one. So they should definitely do this one. But let us know down in the comments below. Your favorite Lake Monster, Sea Monster. It doesn't have to be from this era, but the best or your favorite Lake Monster, sea monster, what's in this kind of vibe. Let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Lieutenant Jenna brings up Behemoth. Nice. Very, very good. Loved it. Sarcasm, Lake Placid. Excellent choice. Casey Cooper says Creature from the Black Lagoon. C. Put the money where it's meant to go. Lake Placid. Why does Lake Placid work? Because Stan Winston created a full-size 35-foot, 35-foot crocodile. 35-foot crocodile for that movie. An actual, like, built the whole thing. Like, you know, fucking making life-size Tyrannosaur for Jurassic Park. He made a 35-foot crocodile for Lake Placid. Okay? So we could have the scene when Oliver Platt is in the water and they do that overhead shot of the crocodile, like, floating in front of him. Okay? So, yeah. Leviathan's a good one. Leviathan's fantastic. Zant? Not sure what Zant is. What is Zant? I've seen you bring... you've mentioned that before. Zant? I have no idea what that is. Godzilla, Jaws, both good. Excellent, yeah. Excellent selections. There's a lot of really, really good stuff, and they show legitimately how to do it and how to do it well. This one, you know, it's just going to make you, like, pine for those ones that you enjoy so much. But definitely let us know. Yes, less is more. That's the point. Why show the fucking monster? And that just boggles my mind. Number one, why does your monster not match the poster, the movie poster? And then why show the monster in the opening of the trailer? Because the monster's supposed to be the draw. If your monster looks like shit, better that they already bought the ticket and then find out it looks like shit than literally put it out there and lose all that box office from the people who looked at it and said, your monster looks like shit. I don't know. One hand did not know what the other hand was doing. That was the problem with that. Oh, Zant is that film that was in that Joe Dante film with John Goodman. Okay, cool. Have to scroll up. I'll have to find it, so I'll look for it, Raven. Cool. If you hit the link I posted, the Hannibal reference will make sense. Oh, okay, so I'll have to check that out. I will definitely check that out. All right, cool. All right, on to our next one. I know we're running a little ahead of schedule. We may spend some time on Splatter University. That's what happens when I'm all by myself. I don't get any other feedback, so I wind up, like, ripping through films faster, you know, instead of getting other points of view. But didn't they show less of Jaws? Joshua Lee says, did they show less of Jaws due to technical problems? They did. So that was the biggest issue, is that when they got the shark in the water, the shark didn't work. And so they were constantly fighting to try and make the shark work, and eventually they did get it to work, and it was kind of a happy accident, because it wound up being that they could hide the shark under the water, not show any of it, and just have people, like, reacting to shit until we finally get the big reveal, when Brody's chum in the water and the classic, we're going to need a bigger boat moment, which is just, you know, it's just what I wish. It's one of those movie moments you wish you were kind of alive for, so you could go back, so you could be there in the theater when that happened, see how people react. It's kind of like with Exorcist. I would have loved to have been in the theater when The Exorcist dropped. People were seeing those scenes for the first time, you know, like the head spin and the vomit and shit. So when the shark pops up, wah, and he's like, and then the shark disappears under the waves. Brilliant shit. Yeah. Good. All right, on to our last one for the night. Released July 13th, 1984. Back in this, I love this. How much time we're spending in the 80s tonight. We have Splatter University. Let's check out this trailer. Cue up the terror tube.
Hiding in the closet anyway.
No, Bob, get away from there! Get away from the
I'm gonna fuck your ass up! Shit! Motherfucker, let go of my arm! Word! Yo, out of here!
First, you were frightened by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Then you were terrorized by Halloween. And now, prepare to be pulverized, traumatized, and hospitalized by Splatter U. More horrifying than you could possibly imagine. Unlike anything you've ever seen. And more.
Hey guys, let's party!
Splatter University, where the school colors are blood red, and not only classes are cut.
Tom? If you think you're funny, you're not!
At Splatter U, everyone parties and has a ball. At Splatter U, it's not whether you pass or fail, but whether you live or die. And when you gotta go, you gotta go. Yes, at Splatter U, the only requirement is survival. Splatter U. It's the only education you'll ever need. Enroll now at a theater near you and earn a higher degree in blood-dripping terror. Splatter U.
Yes, that was the trailer for Splatter University. I'm sorry. Alliteration damn near killed me. Fucking amazing. But yes, Splatter University, 1984 slasher film, directed by Richard W. Haynes, and screenplay by Michael Cunningham, Richard W. Haynes, and of course John Elias McCallicus, and starring Forbes Riley, Rick Randig, Dick Beale, and Kathy LaComere, and Laura Gold. The film follows a group of students who are on campus when all of a sudden the campus is besieged by a slasher, by a killer, and people start winding up dead, and it is up to our intrepid teacher, our new teacher who's currently brought on staff, to solve the mystery and try to make it off campus alive. Played by Forbes Riley. So I will say this one. So Splatter University sets it up. Definitely, you feel the inspiration coming out in 1984. There's a lot of prior stuff to run on. You see in the trailer itself, they mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and of course, this is post Halloween, post Friday the 13th. And I believe post Nightmare on Elm Street as well. So we've got through 1980 to 1983, there is a deluge of slasher films. After Friday the 13th hit, and of course the Burning in 1981, there was so many to take from. Okay, even Student Bodies, 1982. There's a lot of inspiration from that. So you will pick up all the bits and pieces throughout this one. Josh Lee says a trauma film distributed by Trauma. So that's the kicker. It's like Lloyd Kaufman picked this one up for distribution, but it was not a Trauma picture. So that's a big thing there. Now it's definitely inspired, and there are some moments I will give credit where credit is due. There's some moments where things are fairly expectations are fairly subverted, and the genre itself is fairly subverted. This almost felt like a Canadian horror film in what it was trying to do with the slasher genre, even though it takes a lot from Friday the 13th and from Student Bodies. You can definitely see those there. They definitely try to take it in a direction that I don't think everybody would expect. Now, narratively speaking, it does feel disjointed. There is the issue that you have all the student stuff, and then of course you're going to get that feeling as well, where you're kind of like waiting each moment for the kills to come up. The bright light, because all the kids, you're not going to. I wasn't able to kind of like identify with any one of them. They're all just dumb college kids that are just cannon fodder. That's what the students that are there for. But it's Forbes Riley, who is crediting this as Francine Forbes, who really, really knocks out of the park as Julie Parker. So I thought it kind of made me question, why was Forbes never brought up as I'm watching the film, kind of wondering why I never heard of her as a final girl, because as far as performances go, she nailed that. She, picking up where everybody else, picking up where all the other previous films had set up their final girls and run with it. Especially movies like Prom Night and, of course, Prom Night and Cutting Class. Oh no, so it's Prom Night and fucking My Bloody Valentine and April and Happy Birthday to Me. I liked the setup in this one. A very, very likable style, a very, very likable final girl who gets brought in and is the new teacher and everything. She's got to deal with these fucking Animal House style students, which are all just really freaking obnoxious. And I like what she brought to it, the energy she brought to this and the way she approached the part. It did not feel like a slasher film, which was intriguing to me. Well cast, well acted. Everyone around her, though, it feels very, very slasher film trope. So you're going to get this weird energy imbalance, this kind of like tonal dissonance when she's working across from anybody else, because it feels like everyone else is trying to fulfill the horror trope, whether it's the religious dean, the guy who's in charge of everything, or it's her classic, like boyfriend, it's her boyfriend playing the boyfriend role, or it's all of the students themselves. Everybody feels like they're just like, this is what this film is, this is where we fit. She's kind of the standout, because it feels like she brings more to it in the way almost ahead of her time. Okay, even though this came out in 1984, there were nuances to her character that I would say were influenced by certain aspects of feminism that were not readily addressed in other slasher films of the same trope. And whereas in those films, or maybe in Student Bodies, where they touch on these things very kind of tongue-in-cheek, these tropes were utilized to create a fully fleshed out character, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So, but other than that, the film follows the tropes where it has some decent kills. That's where this movie really, really shines, is in the kills itself. The violence is really, really solid. The kills are good. The practical effects are decent. There's some pretty savage stuff in it. And they keep it on. I will have to say, in movies like this, it's really easy to kind of figure out who the killer is, to kind of like suss it out. But they played it pretty close to the vest. So I was wonderfully surprised. I was kind of like, because it didn't really click until almost to the point where they actually revealed it. There was a couple like timing moments where it was like, it can only be this guy. And that was just for sake of editing. But, if unlike me, I'm the one focusing like, can I figure this out? I'm looking at it differently. Your general audience is kind of like is waiting for the kills to pop up or when the bodies are going to start, showing up and what happened to them. So that's the kind of dig on this one. It's a popcorn film, definitely. If you're big into slashers, you're definitely going to enjoy it. And of course, the twist on the whole like religion versus counterculture, because of what our final girl, Forbes is portraying. I think that's where it's kind of riffing off of that. Is like the old school ideology of like women and their place in it, and like kids, or I guess the youth. And then even though our bad guy is a crazy person, even though he's insane, he's escaped from an insane asylum, and that's what he's doing. It's what he's running around killing everyone. With some decent shots, with some decent kills. Blah, having trouble talking because I'm trying to talk too fast. But yeah, other than that, I dig it. Now, the kicker on this one is obviously going to be its third act. So I did not see where they went with this coming. And that's why this almost felt like a Canadian horror film, why we recommend Canadian slasher films so much more over American slasher films, over like the deluge of ones that we got back in the 80s. Because for those, this movie came out in 1984. Okay, so the movie's damn near as old as I am. So yeah, it is a bit of a spoiler to say there is no final girl in this. And the reason for that is because this movie doesn't end the way you anticipate it would be, like a classic slasher. They subvert that expectation by the final girl getting got, which I did not expect at all. I did not think they were going to go in that direction because they do such an excellent job, and her performance in setting up the character as the one who's going to cut you, the one who's going to unravel this whole thing and bring the killer to justice, because the killer winds up being the dean. He's masquerading as a paralyzed person. He's been masquerading as in a wheelchair. Winds up that he does the inevitable stand up. He's a killer. You figure it out around the closet sequence when he kills the girl, when he stabs her in the mouth. Around then is pretty much where I figured out that it was the dean. But then the religious sanctimony of that type of character, that kind of like classic character, running up against that, seeing the death of the old guard and then the rise of this new kind of ideology, you expect that. That doesn't happen here. That all expectations are subverted when she gets got, and not even in a grandiose way. It's actually rather unceremonious because we spent all this time building this thing up. We got the red herring that it might be the boyfriend going on. She runs through the whole mystery, manages to figure the whole thing out, dodges the killer multiple times, runs through the whole body discovery sequence, which we see where bodies are found all over the place. And all of a sudden, she's in the elevator, and the killer gets her. Stick. Done. And then when the boyfriend shows up, because the boyfriend was supposed to meet her, their boyfriend shows up, and it's kind of like, but it's such a drop off because there's no like mourning the character. Our main character, who we followed for like 90% of or actually I'd say like 80% of the film, her arc is predicated upon her. The whole arc of the film is her character arc and how it's evolving amongst all the different individuals that she's meeting on campus. From the religious weirdo dean to the lazy ass students to the boyfriend who she's not sure might be the killer to her best friend who winds up disappearing, which winds up getting killed. All that shit completely subverted in the third act when she gets got like one of the students did. Stick, dead. And then the boyfriend finds her. And then he like leaves. And that's it. Which really shocked me. Took me for a spin on that one. And that's why I think this is one of the big reasons why Splatter University stands out, but I don't understand why, but I get why it doesn't get the recognition that it does, is because this is kind of like, unlike putting forward the only thing that's missing from this is putting forward a killer that is memorable. Like putting forth a legitimately memorable slasher. So like, there's nothing really identifiable about it. It's a priest. It's a guy masquerading as a priest. Or maybe he was, remember he was a priest. And then he went insane. So it's a crazy person who's dressed up like a priest. And that's the person who's killing him. There's nothing super memorable about that. Not like, Jason or Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or, My Bloody Valentine, where something stands out to make them unique and stand them out amongst the field of slashers. They don't capitalize on that, which I know is important because they were trying to be. I think the attempt was to be subversive in that respect, but that kind of like sets this one apart. I think it kind of makes it stand out. Aaron Reese says they were likely trying to make the viewer feel unsafe, showing that no one was safe, but you have to begin transitioning the role of protag before you execute the kill. Yeah, it's so sudden and so sharp, you just don't see it coming. It kind of like just happens. She's stuck. He's like, like hunting for her. Where's she at? Beautiful, like great cinematography there. I love that sequence of him running and the blade coming out. It almost felt like this should have been a 3D movie with some of the shots that they did. But him like running, the close-up shot, that extreme close-up of him like coming down the hallway. The shot of him running and then like the blade coming at the screen and everything. Him looking for her. And then the way sound played, like they're like lost in the school. He's like looking for her, listening for her, and how sound is bouncing off the walls. All of that was exceptionally well done and does a great job of building the tension right up into this moment where she's in the freight elevator and then he just pops over, and then grabs her, stick, and then she's dead. I was like, what? And so but it was not jarring in a way that it took me out of the film because it really cemented my attention in wanting to know how this was going to end. And that is unfortunately, I think, where the ball is dropped ultimately, because they wrap it up so quick in order to just kind of like put a cap on it. Like she dies. The audience is shocked. The boyfriend discovers her. The boyfriend tracks. He's like, he finds the dean. Dean's like, what's going on? And sees the blood on the crucifix. And then the priest is like, you got me. And then it cuts to the end. He's back in there was no conflict. He's back in the asylum in a straitjacket, mumbling to himself. And that's it. If you'll notice, that kind of like cap, that sudden cap on the end of the narrative, without a proper denouement, that kind of cap is actually quite common in trauma pictures, in trauma films. And I think that even though Trauma distributed it, there was definitely some inspiration taken from that in just trying to cap this thing off now that our protagonist is dead, so that the shock kind of resonates with the audience. We don't spend. It was almost like the filmmakers didn't want that kind of initial shock to drop off Because if you spend too much time there, it's going to drop off. Then it's got to go somewhere else. It's like, oh, the initial shock of our protagonist just got killed. Then we got to cap this movie really fucking fast so that they end on that shock instead of ending on that down, like that sudden like letdown. You know, the adrenaline suddenly gone. And all of a sudden, it was like, because we didn't have the money. They didn't have the money to do another big set piece between the priest and the boyfriend. And they just cap it with his capture. We don't even get to see any of that. We just like goes from the office to the asylum. That's pretty much it. Sarcasm said, tonight's tangent brought to you by broken slasher tropes. I would agree. Yeah. So that's the Raven Doctor says, sounds like they were trying to set it for a second one with that ending. You get the feeling that there could have been a sequel to this, much like Evil Speak, where they definitely set that one up for a sequel, where the lead character, where Stanley winds up in the asylum, you know, and he's been there ever since, you know, and then but the spirit is still out there. They're like, Evil Speak was definitely set up for it. As a matter of fact, this is a tangent. If I ever get the opportunity, if I had the money to do it, I would do an Evil Speak sequel, and I would try to bring Clint Howard back for that to either pick up that role and like, you know, have it like changing of the guard, like move on to another person or whatever like that, or maybe they go to him, maybe kind of like a Craft, you know, when they tried to bring but they brought Fairuza Balk back for the Craft. Definitely do Evil Speak and bring Stanley back for that one. I think it would be fucking fantastic. But that's my tangent. I would do an Evil Speak trailer, an Evil Speak sequel. But this one, it seems like maybe they tried to do it. I didn't get that vibe. It felt maybe it was the scoring. The scoring definitely gives you a finality vibe to the end of this one. Like, he's locked up, that's done. You know, it's not going to be like he's straitjacketed now. They're not going to let him out. That's who they get that kind of vibe from that. But, you know, ultimately, I think this one still stands out a bit. Splatter University capitalizes on the kills because that's what we're there to see. It puts the money where it's meant to be. We don't need to care about the students or anybody. The protagonist is the teacher, okay? And her running through the whole mystery. The kills are decent. They're graphic. They're hardcore. So, I mean, your opening kill in the movie is a dude getting stabbed in the balls, okay? It's like stick with what looks like a fillet knife. So it was like, and then stick him in the junk. And the next thing we see is the person has stolen their clothes and is walking out. That's how the bad guy escaped. Is that, you know, he stabs like one of the orderlies in the sack. You know, he stabs him in the dick and then like steals his shit. And then of course, then you have like the next kill like that. But the kills are brutal. You know, they're savage. And I gotta give you, they're fast, they're quick, they're to the point, and the practical effects are there. They're what we need, what we're expecting. And so it puts the money where it's meant to be. It subverts the genre a little bit. It kind of ends us with a shock. Caps it a little quick for me, but otherwise, everything you're expecting to see here is here, okay, with a little bit of a surprise. So I think Splatter University deserves a little bit more credit than I think was given by critics when it first dropped. Because when it first dropped, it was 1984. You'd already had, like, you know, Sorority House Massacre. You'd already had April Fool's Day. You'd already had Prom Night. I mean, all of these films that pretty much any campus slasher, you know, any campus slasher film, it had been done to death. You know, killer on campus, killing people like this. You know, it was the same old. And so, what were you going to expect? Student bodies as well, even though that was really more of a comedy, a slasher comedy. So, but in that respect, I got to give it to this one. Not bad. A small gem, a little gem. You know, buried in the deluge. You won't go wrong by checking it out. Not to mention, I think it's free. It's on Tubi, so you can check it out for free. So, is it on Tubi? Can't remember like that, or it's on YouTube. Okay, either way, but you can definitely find it out there. It's easy to find. Definitely check that one out. So the question that I have for the audience, for you guys, because campus slashers, what better way? Well, you got plenty of cannon fodder. You got students you don't like, students you like. You got people to identify, but the campuses have long been a perfect place for slashers. It's like summer camps, campus college, or like college campuses. What's some other good ones? And like locations like, restaurants or whatever like this. But I love college campuses. That perfect piece of corn in a pile of shit. I love it, sarcasm. So, but let us know down in the comments below. What is your favorite college slasher horror film? Your favorite college slasher horror film, which takes place on a college campus. What's your favorite? One of my favorites is Sorority House Massacre. I love Sorority House Massacre. That's just, just a classic one for me. I also dug, Sorority House Massacre. That's right. That was right. I thought they were two separate movies. But let us know down in the comments below your favorite or what you maybe think is the best college-based slasher film. Killer on campus. Okay, campus killer. Whatever like this. But let us know. Slasher film, Raven. Come on, Animal House. It's a good movie. I love Animal House. Belushi is fucking amazing. So, University of Missouri was a horror show on a college campus. Nice. I like it. Scary Movie. Scary Movie's good. Dig it. Scary Movie 2, I think it's when they were in college. So, good stuff. But let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Love to hear you guys' thoughts. Maybe get some good recommendations in there. All right. And that was the last one we've got to talk about tonight. But that means it is that time. It is everybody's favorite time of the show. It is especially Raven Darkstar's favorite time of the show. It's trivia time. That's right. It is trivia time. So, be the first person in the live chat with the correct answer to tonight's trivia question, and you will win yourself a special item from the Week in Horror store. Okay? First person with the correct answer. Tonight's trivia question is, and I've got the live chat pulled up. Make sure I'm on all messages. I am. We're good to go. Get those Google fingers ready. This one might take a little bit of searching, so get ready for it. What was Splatter University's original title? What was Splatter University's original title? First person with the correct answer down in the live chat wins a special item from the Week in Horror Story mystery item. You never know what it could be. We got some good stuff on there. T-shirts, puzzles of our limited edition artwork, lots of glassware. The pint glasses are freaking fantastic. So, what was Splatter University's original title? Got some guesses coming in. Tony Regine says Splatter U. Nope, not Splatter U. Not Splatter College either. Extra J. Good guesses. Raven Darkstar, no, it wasn't Splat. But what was Splatter University's original title? First person. Yep. I know it's going to take some. Boom! Casey Cooper's got it. Yes, Casey Cooper's got it with Thou Shalt Not Kill. Thou Shalt Not Kill was Splatter University's original title. And of course, the decision was made to change it because Thou Shalt Not Kill put way too much emphasis on the religious aspect and definitely pointed to the one religious figure in the film, which was the guy dressed as the priest, as the killer. And so they changed it to Splatter University. So, but yes, congratulations, Casey Cooper. You are the first winner of July. I'll get your name down here. Casey Cooper, fantastic. We got your name down. I will get that printed and shipped to you as soon as possible. Thank you very, very much, Casey. Well done. Thou Shalt Not Kill. So, that, Horror Fiends, and I know it's not too bad. I kept the time on pretty solidly. I did. It's like, we're almost there. Less than 15. I got it pretty good. Okay. You see, I'm kind of like dragging it a little bit. And Angel Rivera, good to see you as well. Thanks so much for popping in. I do appreciate you being here. But that, Horror Fiends, is going to conclude this episode of the Week in Horror podcast. I think I did a pretty good job. I did. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. We truly hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, smash that like and subscribe button. Be sure to hit the bell so you never miss a future episode. Join us next week when we look back at the controversial religious horror, The Devils, the conclusion of R.L. Stine's trilogy, Fear Street Part 3, 1666, the Canadian indie cannibal horror, Forest of the Dead, and the pitch black horror comedy, Suburban Gothic. Be sure to check out Josh Olsen's store at badsamurai.store. He does all the awesome artworks. He's splattered all over our merchandise, which you can find over at Teespring. For more from Week in Horror, check out all the bloody links down in the description. Follow us on the socials for the Daily Splatter. Join our Discord for watch parties, big announcements, all kinds of horror shenanigans. Hang out with us and support the show through channel memberships here by joining the Army of the Dead, Super Chats, PayPal, Super Thanks, or even our Patreon, which you can support us for as little as $1 a month. Just get your name down there on that banner down below. Thank you very much. You all rock. So as always, oh yes, and by the way, today is July 3rd. You all have a safe Independence Day. If you're going to be partying out there, be safe. Okay, we want to see you all here next week for the next episode. And as always, thank you all so very much for being the greatest audience a horror film podcast could possibly have. Have a wonderful holiday. I am your host, JL. We will see you all next week. And as always, stay scared.